And look what happened in Brazil. It just had a stolen election like we had in the United States, making monkey business with the Dominion voting machines. More and more in America, America is coming back state by state. The Anglo-Celtic, Israelite, rock-solid core of America is waking up. They're not getting on the trains to Treblinka to go to their deaths. At a terrible cost, county by county, state by state are saying, your machine's out. The only difference now between years ago, especially since the Kennedy assassination, is remember Yair Davidiy, remember our friend John Charles Lincoln Hulley. He said the difference between the United States and the Soviet Union was people in the Soviet Union knew they were being lied to. Now, in the last, with the rise of the internet and the independent media, people are starting to wake up and say, wait a second, it's just like General Eisenhower said in his speech in 1960, the danger of the military-industrial complex, except that's not the speech he wrote. His family made him tone it down. He wrote it himself. He said a military-industrial congressional complex, the concentration of power on a scale that had never been seen before in US history until after World War II. And as we all know, as Lord Acton said, he was speaking about the doctrine of papal infallibility. He says, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that's true everywhere. Anyone, unless someone is so saintly, yes, they exist, like Moses and Aaron when they collected the money for, and some of the kings after them, what was it, Hezekiah, Josiah, there was no corruption. That exists. 1 out of 10,000. Such people exist, but they are very much the exception rather than the rule. So we have an unprecedented situation in Brazil where Yair Messias Bolsonaro, look, those are his first and middle names. His parents gave him a real patriot, a real Jew lover like Trump. I mean, and I don't mean the state of Israel. Let's leave that on. The Godland, Torah, and people of Israel say, we are with you, which isn't surprising because in addition to the lost tribes nations waking up worldwide, you have millions of people in the Spanish and Portuguese speaking world of Jewish origin, in part or whole, who went underground after the expulsion from Spain and then Portugal. The Moranos, the Conversos, some practiced Judaism in secret, others didn't want to. They're there. When I was on Kibbutz Shluchot in 1978 to 1979, there was a young man. He's a rabbi now in Israel. I haven't been in touch with him for 40 years. I should get in contact with him again. What was his story? His family converted to Catholicism and didn't practice Judaism in secret. They said, okay, let's do it. We're going to be more Catholic than the Pope. And they became very wealthy Catholic Spanish aristocracy. Somehow, after 500 years, he starts looking up and discovers, wait a minute, we was Jews. And he says, I'm going to Israel. His family disowned him. We don't want anything to do with you. You know, like Rabbi Akiva and Calvin Saboya, when Rachel liked him, you want that shepherd, that illiterate, ignorant shepherd? I'm disowning you. He went, he became a real rabbi, a halakhically observant Jew, and he's been living here ever since. I should even know his name. Goodness, there have been some stories about him. I should renew old acquaintances. And there are people like Cardano, Danis Macias, people in Brazil who were president, vice president years ago. Once there was a time when people were afraid to talk about their Jewish origins. Yair, when was the last person burned in an auto da fe? John, maybe you know it. It wasn't in 1520. It was in the 1800s in Mexico City. A Catholic accused of practicing Judaism in secret was burned alive at a stake in the The 1800s is the 19th century. In the 19th century. So, and I know we have this program with Yafa Bacha da Costa on the banana scene. She's going to start again. She had to finish a book she was doing. Yair, you're from Australia, I'm from America. It's hard for us to understand the fear that's like cattle branded into Jews from the Hi Nelson. Okay, thank you. In Toronto. Cattle branded into these people, and you're dealing with millions and millions and millions of people of partial Jewish descent. The Chuetas in where is it? What's that island off the coast of Spain?
Majorca?
Yeah, Mallorca. And one person who was there said there are we're three groups. One, we know we're Jewish and we're proud of it. The other, we know we're Jewish and we don't care. And the other third, don't tell us we're more Catholic. They're all a problem. Being Jewish is a problem. You like it, you don't like it, you agree, you don't agree. It's a problem being part of Am Yisrael. So you have this huge awakening all over the world. You have people in southern Italy of Jewish origin. That goes back to the old Romans, where they went underground because of the blessings of Holy Mother Church. Okay, then you have in the Anglo-Celtic, rock solid, I would identify it more or less with the MAGA movement, but it's bigger than that specific movement. I want to point out that President Trump, his mother spoke Gaelic as a child. Mrs. Mary MacLeod, her original name, came as an 18-year-old to America from the Outer Hebrides, from the village of Tong in the island of Lewis and Harris. That's as Scottish as it gets. She spoke Gaelic. He said when he was president, addressing the prayer breakfast, they have this annual prayer breakfast in February, and he said, I actually listened to the whole speech. He says in the middle, when we were children, okay, that's fine. Nelson, we'll see you soon. No, you have to go. We sat around the table and Mom read us from the Bible. That doesn't surprise me or Yair. It's deep in the spiritual and physical genetics of especially the Anglo-Celtic Israelite element. And it's waking up. And like John says, look, anyone who thinks what we're going through is normal with Ukraine and Russia and a crew, the United States of America, we have a crew in Washington that has little or nothing to do, yeah, you're in Australia, and I expect you to know all this stuff, has little or nothing to do with we the people, law unto itself, not elected, but installed in phony elections using these machines. That's why more and more of the states and counties around the United States say, next election, paper ballots. We don't want this. Senators, congressmen, they're 50, 60, 70, 90 years. Why they're so great? Because there's fraudulent elections. But it's made to look like, as Machiavelli said, it's not necessary for the prince to be good, but it's necessary that he appear so. So that's all falling apart, including right here, the battle for judicial reform. Let's leave out left wing, right wing, chicken wing. It's about systems. Again, systems are only as good as the people who observe them. That's true anywhere. But you still have to have at least theoretically a system, like in the United States, the Declaration of Independence and the Articles of Confederation, the Constitution and the Federalist Papers. There's systems and structures that exist and that go back centuries. Like, what did the British say? The agents of the crown before the revolution, the black regiments are stirring up the people. They meant the pastors and the ministers and the churches. They're quoting the Bible. They're calling us the Egyptians, and they're the Israelites. They want to be led to freedom. They said, we don't know what to do about it. What, are you going to arrest all the pastors? The black regiments. So what you're talking about on the surface, it might seem that people are secular, not religious. I don't believe it for 1 second. Every person, I don't care what your ethnic group or religion is genetically coded to want to know our creator and knows subconsciously there's a basic moral law of the universe. If it didn't, there'd be no sense of guilt when we break it. There'd be no guilt routines. And there'd be no expression like hypocrisy is the homage that vice pays to virtue. If there's no virtue, there's no hypocrisy. It's like in stone. So we're proud of it. So it's all waking up, like you're saying in Brazil. And it's an exciting time to be alive, but it's also very scary because it could go nuclear. Whether one likes the Russians or not, the accusations about the biolabs weapons in Ukraine are real. They got caught. That's why the day of the invasion, Zelensky, whatever he has, started to have all the records destroyed about the relations with the Department of Destruction in Washington. You can't kosher these pigs. It's all coming out. Genetically coded bioweapons that, when released, can target specific population groups. All sorts of stuff is coming out, including right here, stuff that people in power, like as Yair says, he frequently quotes the prophets describing the corruption of those who held power at the time the prophets were talking to them. The priests, the prophets, the princes, the judges, the kings. Yes, there were exceptions like Hezekiah and Josiah, that's true, but they don't pull any punches. We live in very similar times. All the masks are coming up. Let's say one other thing before I hand it back to Yair. Rav Kook said, in order for the world of truth to appear, the world of lies has to be destroyed. In order for it to be destroyed, it's like you have to surface the U-boats and then sink them. Not with depth charges where you heard some, that they have to be brought up and say, this corporation did that, that foundation did this government agency did that. In order for the Ben David and Ben Yosef to do their job, evil has to be exposed. Exposure is like 80% of its destruction. People have to wake up everywhere. And that means a lot of people, corporations, foundations, government institutions, which want to, as Machiavelli said, appear righteous and are not, get exposed. Like the Clinton Foundation after Haiti, remember the earthquake, 500,000 dead? A huge number. We're collecting all this money to build 5 houses. Where'd the rest of the money go? So a lot of stuff is coming out and say, yeah, people do stuff like that. Just read the Tanakh. They did it back then. Why would anyone think the Canaanite cults went away and would stop? Like at Epstein Island. No, that's not real. My question, when people bring that up, is, excuse me, would you please read the ancient records of all cultures? Why would you think it stopped? Not why did they do it? Why do you think they stopped doing it? Man in our fallen state. So you're in Brazil. Well, anyone has to do. I'm not a big fan of the conquistadors and the Spanish who came, but before they came, what were the Incans and the Mayans? And then they mass human sacrifice in their temples. That's what they were built for. Why would anyone, when people say people steal, murder, rape, well, yeah, and child human, yes, well, can they do that? I say, well, when didn't they do that? Just look at all written records since the Sumerians. It's all there. You could even, so for Ben David and Ben Yosef to come and do their job, and yeah, here, you know, some of our rabbis say, well, that Ben David is already here, and there's always someone in every generation who could do it. And I would agree with John that in terms, look, what's different? We've gone through 73 years of a reestablished state of Israel. It's good, it's bad, it's good and bad, but it exists. It may not be perfect, it may not be based on the Torah, but it's some sort of Jewish sovereignty. Never mind the people who are born Jews don't actually act Jewish, but that didn't exist for 2,000 years since the destruction of the temple. There was no sovereignty of any kind. And now there is. That's unprecedented. World War I and World War II. What was done, and not just the Japanese with their biological weapons center, research center in Manchuria, like what the Nazis did, and said, so who else is, all these things are coming out. That's why Yair's work is so important, because reuniting the tribes means reunited through and all of humanity, faith in the one true God of Israel, I don't care what your religion is, and his eternal moral law, which means that those who are violating those laws have to be exposed. And they are getting exposed. Like, one small point, the Torah law on abortion, I think, is pretty clear. Other than saving the life of the mother, you can't abort a child. And saving life, what does mean? I'll be depressed afterwards, postpartum. It means literally life and death, or I'll lose my job or my benefits. There are very few cases where it's permitted in Jewish law. But let's leave that aside. What happens to the bodies, the stem cells, the tissues? Big business. What about organs? It's now easily possible that the technology exists for harvesting organs from people. That's a big trade. And who's the source of it? Dead soldiers? Dead people in hospitals? People who, well, thanks a lot, and you still have to be sort of alive when we take them out for them to be in good condition. Follow the money. It doesn't go to very nice places. All these things, whether it's in Africa, in the Congo, children being used for cobalt mining under the most unsanitary conditions, like William Blake writing about his dark satanic mills. Now, when Ben David and Ben Yosef come, those things don't continue. It's not, okay, on this side of the tracks, everything looks nice, and over there, fine, there's Auschwitz and Treblinka, and no, that's not it. The prophets are very clear about this.
It's good. Thank you very much for being here. It helps us a lot. It helps us express ourselves. I find it much easier to say things when I have an audience like you, especially important people like yourselves. You get spiritual feedback, emotional reinforcement. Also, our feels the same. We relate to ourselves. It comes out much better when we have an audience like yourselves than if we just sit there before a camera and speak into the camera. And so you participate in this, and thank you very much. May the Lord God of Israel be with you, bless you all, and see you next time.